South Carolina 50, the Akron Zips 7. Week 4 scene of the crime video. I'm Elijah Campbell. He's Jack Veltri. We are talking about a blowout victory for the South Carolina Gamecocks 1 week after a heartbreaking loss to LSU in the second SEC game of the year. You rebound really well. You come here, take care of business against an Akron team. Oh, yeah, and Jack Veltri, they did it without Lenora Sellers at quarterback. Robbie Ashford, your backup transfer from Auburn, came in relief, started the game, threw for over 200 yards in the air, threw for 2 touchdowns, and ran for a touchdown on the ground. And, oh, yeah, he ran for well over 130 yards.
132 yards, man. He was electric tonight. I think, look, a lot of people, maybe rightfully so, criticize, whatever you want to call it, the way he played last week. And you got to give him some credit. He went out here and balled out tonight. No doubt about it. He played very well, made some nice passes, ran when he needed to, and just very solid performance. And I know people are going to say, oh, it's Akron, this and that. But, like, man, this is a huge confidence builder. And Shane Beamer, I asked him after the game, he feels so good about where his quarterback room is at. Davis Bevel played well tonight in garbage time. And
Dante Reno got like 2 snaps.
Dante Reno got in there.
Dante Reno sighting here at Williams-Brice tonight.
But the point is, they have, if for whatever reason a quarterback goes down again, you feel good about what you have in the toolbox. And I think for South Carolina, that is a necessity to have without Sellers out there.
It definitely is. And look, you go back to the second half of the LSU game last week, you can reasonably say you lost that game because LSU ran 25 plays in the third quarter. You ran 6 because you had 2 3-and-outs. You couldn't really get anything going offensively to sustain long drives. But tonight, not only did you sustain long drives, you had some explosive plays. Look, Robbie Ashford had made a couple downfield throws. He had the downfield touchdown to Mazeo Bennett. He had the downfield long third down conversion to Mazeo Bennett that put them inside the 2-yard line, in which Oscar Attaway got the ball and scored later. He also had an explosive downfield pass to Gage Larvidan, who we haven't really seen much of. He got banged up in practice before the season started. And tonight's really the first night that Gage Larvidan looked like a consistent factor in the offense. He caught 2 balls for almost 80 yards, and one of them was a total bomb, and it stretched the field. That's the one thing this offense has really lacked all season long, is a consistent downfield threat. So when looking even just at like some of the non-quarterback plays, Jack, I mean, I feel like between those receivers that we talked about with Mazeo and Gage, and then with Oscar Attaway being able to punch in 2 scores on the ground, and also Jordan Howell got some valuable carries. Juju
Matthew Fuller.
Matthew Fuller.
A lot of guys got reps tonight, and that's kind of – because for a time, honestly, this game felt a lot closer than the score might indicate. Like, this was, I believe, like 29-27 going into the fourth quarter.
29-7.
29-7, sorry. Yeah. And South Carolina still had starters in the game. So once they got the lead a little bigger, a lot of guys got to come in. I mean, it's valuable for them to catch passes, get runs in tonight that maybe they wouldn't otherwise. And, again, it really does speak to the depth that we heard so much about in fall camp. And I feel like it was really put on full display tonight.
It definitely was. And then, you know, when you're looking at a defensive point of view right now, too, you had a disappointment in the third quarter against LSU. You let one slip away, but this is a veteran group because what they did was they didn't sulk, right? Like, they didn't sit around and kind of woe is me themselves to death throughout the course of the week. I mean, that's one thing that I really wanted to ask, you know, Demetrius Knight, linebacker, and Kyle Kennard after the game was, what's that process like to get a loss like that in the rearview mirror and use the experience you have? Look, Kyle Kennard transferred from Georgia Tech. He's played a lot of college football. Demetrius Knight transferred from Charlotte, and that was his second school. Like, Demetrius Knight has played a lot of college football. It's a veteran group, and they turned around tonight, and with the exception of one scoring drive, completely shut out Akron. At one point in time, they only had about like 60-something total yards, and this is at about well into the second quarter, and South Carolina was creeping over 200. I mean, it was a beatdown from a total yard discrepancy. This defense came out and pitched an almost perfect game despite having some disappointment last week. And with a bye week ahead of them, I think there's a little bit of an element of being impressed by the maturity of a bunch who doesn't like lay down and quit when things start getting hard. And I think that's one thing tonight. If you can take anything away from this defense, is look, Akron's offense is bottom 3 in the country, and Bill Connolly's SP plus. The defense isn't very good either, but like you got to kind of have to like read between the lines in a 50-7 game like this. But one of those things that I'm able to read, Jack, is that this defense is a veteran group who is willing to take care of them. That's the one thing Demetrius and I said. Take care of them.
Yeah, I think they know that how good they really are and can be. I feel like they still know there's room to improve as usual, and that's kind of what you want after a game like this. Is that, hey, look, it wasn't perfect tonight. You still had a lot of penalties. You obviously gave up the long touchdown that Judge Carter just simply kind of misplayed a little bit. It looked like he got beat and
might have jumped a smidge early.
Yeah, he kind of made like a last-ditch effort to jump and try to maybe knock that ball down or pick it off, but it went over his hands. Look, it doesn't really matter because South Carolina won this game 50-7. But the point is, there are things to take away that you can still improve upon, and I think that's a good thing when you have such a tough schedule coming up in October. And I really do think this defense had a wonderful first month of the season. Yeah, I'm counting the August game too. They really balled out, and they kept South Carolina in every single game and gave the offense a chance. I mean, look, tonight it really didn't matter how they played because the offense had over 500 total yards tonight, which is insane without Lenore Sellers or Jared Brown or Rocket Sanders. But like the fact of the matter is they played a really good game tonight, and the defense didn't even have – they only had one turnover tonight. I mean, DQ Smith finally got the big play he was needing, and I mean, look, the defense didn't have to do a whole lot, but they really did play another tremendous game tonight.
And lastly, we'll go ahead and look forward a little bit. Look, Lenore Sellers is in a walking boot on the sideline tonight. Rocket Sanders, 2 plays in, got hurt and played the rest of the night. I think we're both kind of feeling this is precautionary, on the surface. You have a bye week, a full week to get rested, and then on October 5th, not next Saturday, the week after
2 weeks from
Saturday, 2 weeks from now, Juice Wells and the Ole Miss Rebels are going to return into this stadium in this facility right here.
That better be a night game. That better be a night game.
As of last reporting, Ole Miss up at least 4 touchdowns on Georgia Southern. They're going to win that game.
Tough schedule.
Yeah, tough. And then they play Kentucky, and I thoroughly expect them to beat them over the head with a bag of hammers. So I fully expect Ole Miss to be waltzing into Willie B undefeated and being a top 5 team in the country. That's your next game. So what is this team going to have to do, aside from just really getting healthy in this next week, to make sure that they make this place a house of horrors for the Ole Miss Rebels?
They got to just keep the same mentality. I think I asked Juju McDowell about kind of what is the vibe in the locker room like right now. You're 3-1. And honestly, this kind of goes for every guy that spoke about what it's like right now. They're still keeping it the same way it's been all year. Like Juju said it perfectly. They're coming for blood, and they're going to approach they hear the doubters and what people say. Obviously, they're keeping it the same, and that's the way it should be. You shouldn't be getting too high, too low. Find that good middle point and use it to your advantage, because there are still people that are going to be like, "Oh yeah, Ole Miss is going to come in here and rout South Carolina." I think with the way this defense plays, you have a chance to beat anyone. You get healthy, get the pieces you have back. It really could be I think they have a chance. I'm not saying they're going to win or lose, but I think they do have a great chance to come in here and maybe pull off a shocker. I mean, look, Ole Miss really hasn't played anyone this year.
Very true.
Maybe that's to their advantage. They haven't had to go into an environment like this. I think they've only had 1 road game so far.
Is that Wake Forest?
That Wake Forest game. And let's be honest, it's Wake Forest. South Carolina is going to be, regardless of what time this game is, it's going to be an insane environment, I think. And I think just the mentality these guys have. Obviously, Juice Wells is a big factor in this game, but I don't think they're going to let it get to their heads, especially coming off the loss they had last week. If they're able to push aside all the drama that happened in that LSU game, losing that one, and coming out here and playing the way they did tonight, I think they're going to be fine moving forward.
I think so, too. That's the big thing. I think the way this defense plays, if you got pressure on Garrett Nussmeier and LSU, you can get pressure on Jackson Dart and Ole Miss in this stadium on October 5th. And that's going to at least raise the floor to the point where you're going to be competitive in every game you play in this year, despite having the number 7 toughest strength of schedule remaining in all of college football. It's a daunting task, but we're going to cover that a whole lot more. A lot of reaction on this game, a lot of talk about Robbie Ashford's play, a lot of looking into the future, into the bye week on what this team needs to accomplish before we roll into that massive October 5th showdown here at Williams-Brice Stadium. We'll do that on 107.5 The Game all week, starting with Bill Gunner, Preston Thorne, and Jen Jensen at the early game. starting at 6 a.m. all the way up until 6 p.m. when Jay Phillips and myself at the post-game show roll off air. Your reaction, your thoughts, everything going into a crucial bye week leading into the biggest game of the season on October 5th. I'm Elijah Campbell. He's Jack Veltri, South Carolina 50, Akron 7. We'll be with you again 2 weeks from now in this very spot, and we should have a very interesting result. We'll talk to you then.